Hey guys, before we get started on the episode, I wanted to tell you about our sponsor, Organic Price Books. Organic Price Books is a small business dedicated to saving you money on collected editions of the books you love. Whether that be trade paperbacks, hardcovers, absolutes, or omnibus, Organic Price Books has you covered. They have all the brands that you love: DC, Marvel, IDW, Dynamite, and so many more. To take advantage of this partnership, go to the link in the description of this podcast and use our promo codes. Those are TFRbatpod to save you $2 off of any order, or TFRbatpod Ship It Together to save you 5% off of any order of 3 books or more. When you do this, not only are you supporting a small business and saving yourself money on the books you love, you're also supporting this show as you do so. So go check out Organic Price Books today. Thanks, guys, and enjoy the show. Welcome, citizens of Gotham, to The Fire Rises, a Batman podcast focusing on all things The Dark Knight and his world. If you'd like to connect with the show, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and X at TFRbatpod. And if you have thoughts, questions, comments, or even suggestions for future episodes of the show, you can reach us by email. That's tfrbatpod@gmail.com. My name is Eric Carter, and I am your host, and I am joined once again by my co-host, Mr. Joseph Fornerado. Joe, how are you, buddy?
Good. Good morning, Eric. How's it going?
It is going. It is going. We are into February, and of course, that means Valentine's Day, which, let me just go ahead and preface this, Joe. I hate Valentine's Day. I'm
I
not a fan of
forgot
the
you.
holiday.
You have told me that before, and I totally forgot about that. That is right.
Yeah, my wife and I generally don't celebrate Valentine's Day. Both of us just see it as kind of a fabricated cash grab more than an actual thing to celebrate. So
Which is completely fine as long as you both agree to that. One of you cannot have that opinion.
that is very true. That's very true. And I have, previous, we won't get into that, whatever. Um, but yeah, so I'm not a big fan, but with it being the time of the year and the next upcoming holiday, I figured why not, throw something in there. And well, and I actually think originally this was your idea, but we're very close to the anniversary release of the Batman Adventures Mad Love, the very popular comic. So that's what we're going to talk about today, Joe. And we had discussed this back and forth. We did kind of miss the anniversary. I think it was last year, but doesn't really matter. And we had talked about whether to talk about the episode or the comic or what have you. But we did land on the comic. And I'm sure we'll sprinkle in a little bit about the episode back and forth. But before we kind of dive into the story, I really wanted to gauge where you're at with Mad Love. What do you think of the story overall, Joe? And do you remember like the first time you read it?
That's a good question. I do not remember the first time I've read it, but it's ironic because when we had talked about doing this episode, it never even occurred to me that it was a Valentine's Day episode. That didn't even cross my mind until you started your opening monologue here. So, but it
Well,
obviously is. It's
we'll say
definitely.
unofficially. It's kind of a loosely based
Yeah, but it, it
Valentine's.
it does fit, and I will say so. Yeah, we had discussed whether we're going to do the comic or the episode, and it kind of works for both. So we're only 2 months late, not even 2 months late for the comics. What would that be? The 30th anniversary. So the comic came
Yes.
out in December of '93. So we're only 2 months late for that. And then we're in the year of the 25th anniversary of the episode, I think. 25th? Yeah.
99, I think. No.
Oh,
No, I can't remember, to be honest. I
that's a
know
good question.
it was later in the run because it was one of the very last episodes of the show.
Okay.
I think it
But
was
even
like,
so, that would be
yeah.
99 would be 25 years. So it works for both anniversaries loosely. We're not really on either one of them. But I what's weird to me is that I definitely did not read this when it came out. I definitely did not I guess I didn't know Harley's origin until the episode came out, but I don't remember ever not knowing her origin. Like, I mean, I was a little kid when the animated series was on, so I guess I just didn't really think about Harley having an origin or anything like that. But I do not remember a time, which is again, it's kind of contradictory, but that's what happens when our memories are a little foggy. I don't
Mhm.
remember a time of not knowing Harley's origin. I can't imagine going through the entirety of the original run of the animated series and not knowing her origin. But I had to have done that because there's no way I knew about the comic while we were watching. And the comic didn't even come out in the beginning of the show. It came out towards the end of the show, didn't it? Or at least at the end of the first season.
So this comic came out December 14th, 1993
Yeah. And the animated series premiered.
in 92.
Okay.
I think. But the show, the episode that this is based on was much, much later. I mean, the
Yeah, because it
comic
was the
was
new
pre
adventures. Yeah.
yeah. So the comic definitely predated the episode by quite a bit. But the whole purpose really in what you were just saying, you know, because you always remembered Harley's origin, the whole purpose of this issue or this one shot oversized comic was because Paul Dini did not want Harley just to be a standard regular hinch person.
Mhm.
He wanted Harley to have a little more, wanted to have something you could really connect with her. So they decided to give her an origin, and DC offered Paul Dini and Bruce Timm a one shot, you know, longer form issue of the Batman Adventures, and that's what they decided to do with it. Um, And I'm with you. I can't remember when I read this the first time. I know I saw the episode first. So the new Batman Adventures, I saw that before I ever read the book. I remember seeing the episode and knowing this is a great episode of TV.
Mhm.
Um, and then I don't know, it was years later that I read that. I think I saw like a trade edition of it in a comic shop or something like that. So this was in the mid 2000s or later when I first picked it up.
I got to be in the same boat because I have the trade, um, Man
Mhm.
Love and Other Stories. I kind of remember reading it, thinking I had read it prior, and then once I started reading it, like, oh no, I definitely didn't. Um,
And I think
and
the
this
reason you think that is it's almost
episode,
page for page the episode.
yes, there's a few little things that are different. Um,
Mostly
but
chunks of dialogue.
yes, chunks of dialogue here and there. One little spot of Batman in the Batcave in the very beginning. I don't think that's in the episode. Him with Alfred, because Alfred I don't think is in the episode.
Mm-mm.
Um, and this trade, I'm assuming you're right. It came out in the 2000s. I'm looking 2009. Is that possible? It says
Could be.
copyright 2009. Yeah, and I was gonna. Is there a hardcover version of this?
There's a deluxe edition.
Oh, okay. Because I might have to, because it is a good trade. It's nice to have. I am kind of disappointed. It is just a paperback. And as I'm flipping through it, it has, Batman, the holiday special in this.
Yeah, so there's a trade paperback. There is the deluxe edition, which can't I can't remember when it came out. In fact, I've got it right here. It came out April 21st, 2015. So I don't know how easy it is to get at this
Hmm.
point, but it is out there. And it does have bonus material, which, deluxe editions are known for. There's also been a um, novelization made. Paul
Yes.
Dini actually wrote the novelization of this with a partner writer. I've never read that, but I've been fascinated to check it out because I did. I think I read the Court of Owls novelization that they did in that same
Hmm.
line, and I enjoyed that. It was pretty good. So, and Paul Dini, you can't go wrong with. So,
I would assume there's
I
a lot more material in that. They
it is,
expanded it
yeah,
probably. Yeah.
yeah. So they did expand it. But this when this came out, I mean, it was really well received at the time. Of course, you have the team of Paul Dini and Bruce Timm. So this won an Eisner Award for Best Single Issue. Bruce Timm was also nominated for Best Penciler and Inker at the Eisner Awards, and it won a Harvey Award for Best Single Issue or Story. So it was very well received, award-winning comic, and also got its own episode of the animated series. So diving into the story a little bit, Joe, um, there's a lot more here than just Harley's origin. Of course, we get the origin in the asylum with Harley kind of falling in love with her patient in the Joker. But I think there's a lot here about discussions past what a children's comic or TV show would normally discuss. There's some deep stuff here with um Stockholm syndrome kind of.
Hmm.
There's stuff with domestic abuse. And there's that situation. I think it resonates so well because you see that victim that cannot escape the person they love or they think they love. And even though it's through the lens of an animated, it's a comic book or an animated series episode, there's a lot there that happens in real life every day. Someone who's downtrodden and beaten and can't escape, but can't leave. Would you agree with that?
Oh, definitely. And uh, I apologize. I'm probably going to go back and forth a lot between like this and the show or the episode because I think it's hard for me to kind of differentiate the two sometimes. But we always talk about how we love that the animation or the art in the book is the original series.
Hmm.
Um, where the show aired during the New Adventures, so it's the new animation, which I think most of us tend to agree is not as good as the original. I
Right.
will say to piggyback off your first point, though, I don't know if this would have been able to air in the early seasons of Batman the Animated Series because the censors were much stricter when it was Batman the Animated Series. They got a lot looser when they went to channel, I guess it was channel 11 when they did the New Adventures. Or
That's
do I have
regional.
Okay, so but either way, it was definitely much looser with the censors when it went to New Adventures.
It went from
Um
Fox to Kids WB, I believe.
okay. Um but I do remember that the censors got looser. They were able to do a lot more. And I think especially with this episode, um, I don't think it would have worked with this context in the comic because or they would have had to heavily edit it, I think. They were very strange with the censors early on, and Bruce Timm has talked about that ad nauseum with how they had to tweak things. Like you couldn't use regular guns, but you could use a Tommy gun because kids couldn't get their hands on Tommy guns, like stupid stuff
Right.
like that. Um, but yeah, I mean, as far as like this is definitely a more adult themed episode, and that's saying a lot from Batman the Animated Series, which tended to be, you know, not necessarily that it was geared towards adults, but it didn't dumb down for the children. There was not an episode that, I mean, it kind of it went back and forth a little bit, but this one, the real world stuff, like you said, with the Stockholm syndrome and all that, and I'm kind of rambling at this point, other than to say I agree with you. It's pretty heavy stuff, and the book even delves into Harley prior to becoming Harley, where they didn't want to touch on that in the episode. If you remember the scene with her and whether it be the dean or one of her teachers at college something
Yeah.
she does to, up her grades a little bit. Not something that definitely you wouldn't want to show that in a kids TV show, and it's something that we take a little bit more seriously nowadays than maybe back then it was played for a laugh.
Yeah. Well,
That struck me.
there's things in the comic that I'm so fascinated got translated into the episode
Mhm.
because if I read this comic without ever watching Batman the animated series, there are things in the comic that I would never think would make it onto a kids television show. For instance, Harley in her 90, when
Which is
she's
definitely a little bit more revealing in the comic than it is in the show.
yes, but the fact that it even made it into the show
Agree. Yeah.
and the comment about don't you want to rev your Harley? Because there's definitely some connotations there, but it's translated straight from the comic. So I'm happy that they were able to do that. And then again, some of the domestic abuse, like
Mhm.
it's very clear in the comic. I think they do kind of put a softer edge on it because
Yeah.
they do some more cutaways and stuff
Yes, I
in
don't
the
remember at
episode.
the end of the episode if he actually does hit her with the fish, because he hits
I
her with the fish in the book for sure. I don't
Yeah,
remember in the episode if he does or not. But yeah, he grabs her nose in the comic at one point and like drags her out of the lair, and that's when he kicks her to the curb. In the show, it cuts away from that. You just see her being thrown out the door,
yeah,
mysteriously or whatever.
yeah. But I mean, it starts the exact same way. We've got Joker's plot to kill Gordon. It's at the dentist office, and I
Mhm.
love that Gordon just dreads the dentist so much. And after this encounter, he may not ever go back to the dentist. Um, but of course, Joker is there and attempts to kill him, which in the comic, just like the show, attempted murder right at the
Mhm.
beginning for
Yep.
a children's comic or TV show.
Yeah.
So, and of course, Batman foils the plan, and Joker is just so frustrated because he can never one up Batman. So Harley gets the bright idea to use one of Joker's plans to show him that they can work, which of course is not what Joker wants at all. And it all comes to a head at the end when Joker stops Harley because only he can kill Batman. Um, but it's fascinating to me that Harley, because she's not so hyper focused on Batman as Joker is, she's more focused on making Joker happy. That she came, and even Batman says this in the comic, she came way closer to killing him than Joker ever did.
Mhm.
I mean, she had him. If it wasn't for Batman, kind of outsmarting her just a tiny bit and, letting her know, which he was probably right. Joker never would have believed it.
Mhm.
Even if he'd have seen bones or cloth or whatever with the piranha tank, he never would have believed that Batman was dead and that she killed him. So she has to call him to bring Joker in. And when he gets there, he stops the whole thing because he's not going to let Harley Quinn steal his glory. And I love the scenes it didn't translate to the episode, but I love the panels where Joker is on the way to where Harley has Batman,
Yes.
and you
Yep.
see he's thinking about all the other villains in Gotham picking on him, like Joker's girlfriend or calling him Mr. Quinn and all this because Joker
Yeah.
he thinks Harley's gonna get all this glory around Gotham's underworld for killing Batman.
Mhm.
I love that. That's hilarious to me.
That's some of my favorite stuff from the book that does not translate at all into the show is what's going on in their minds, where Joker's doing
Mhm.
that. There's a scene where Harley is actually picturing what their life might be in the future. And do you remember the panel? There's little kids running around, and then there's Batman's head over the mantle.
Yes.
Is it the two Tiny Toons characters hung? Did you notice that?
Oh, I'd have to go back. I don't
Okay,
remember
so
that.
I don't know if you could see it or not, but I swear it looks like now I haven't watched Tiny Toons since I was a kid. Um, but the two main characters of Tiny Toons, you don't see their faces, you just see the back of them. And now I'm flipping through the pages here. I apologize, but it looks like clear to me that they are literally hanging. Um, let's see if I can show you the right thing here. Uh, you see them in the top?
Oh,
Like
I
that's
don't know if
how
that's the
morbid is
Tiny
that?
Toons because it looks like
It looks
rabbit ears.
so yeah, because
So
it's
I'm not
Bugs.
sure.
Tiny Toons was Bugs Bunny and
Oh, I was thinking Animaniacs. You're right,
no,
Tiny
no.
Toon.
So
Yeah,
Tiny Toons was Bugs Bunny and again, I don't even remember if it was Bugs and another, female bunny character. I don't remember their names or anything, but I just remember the pictures of them when I was a kid. I just found that so dark and creepy for no reason other than it's, Bruce Timm. But I just thought it was
yeah.
so like again, that's not something you're going to show on a kid's cartoon, but that's the stuff I really appreciated from the book that we've seen this episode so many times that when you read the book and you catch something, you're like, oh, like I don't remember that part, and that's like the whole scene right there where she's picturing the kind of reminds you of in Suicide Squad where she has that vision of
Of like
in
a
the
blissful
kitchen,
existence with
yeah,
Joker.
and
Yeah.
it's a twisted existence. It's not it's not your typical family.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've seen that in Harley Quinn the animated series as well.
Hmm.
Like what she would ultimately dream of, and what's not possible with
Yeah.
Joker. But yeah, it's awesome to see that depiction here in the comic, and I love that the kids are running around and it's like JJ and I can't remember what the little girl's name was, but the little
Hmm.
girl is screaming about JJ's trying to poison her, and Joker as the old wizened dad and his lazy boy is saying,
Yep.
"Well, poison him right back."
Yeah.
Um, I think I think the biggest, of course, the biggest sticking point of this issue, of this one shot, is the origin of Harley and going back to how she became associated with the Joker. Of course, we all know that she was a psychiatrist before. She came into Arkham, became Joker's doctor, and then fell in love with him. What's fascinating about this to me is, as much as I love this story, I don't think this is my preferred origin for Harley. So I'm going to preface that.
Well, that's
In this
interesting. I'm curious where you're going with that. I think I have an idea, but okay.
so in this version, um she's kind of a glory hound.
Hmm.
Like she comes in, um she she kind of slept her way to her degree, as we
Hmm.
see earlier. She gets her degree and she's looking to kind of become one of these TV or book writer
Hmm.
psychologists. She wants to get famous by doing this. So she gets herself a position at Arkham because this is where all these lunatics and villains are, and she wants to use them to launch her fame and her like celebrity psychiatrist career. And for the story, I think that works really, really well. And for the version that they originally portrayed in the animated series, that works great. Um, but there have been like alterations of that origin over the years. Like Harleen is an
That was where I
oversized
assumed
collection.
that was where I assumed you were going because I do really enjoy that story.
I like the really career oriented, the one that the version of Harley that actually really wants to help people
Hmm.
and ends up with this syndrome that kind of the Joker cracks her and
Yeah.
breaks her. And even it's the same with the Murphy verse with that version of Harley Quinn, which I think is one of my favorite versions of Harley. I
Hmm.
love her in those books. Um, but I mean, this is where it all started. So it had to come from somewhere. And then, of course, like they do, comics artists and writers over the years, they reinterpret.
Exactly.
So while I love this version, I do think it has been done better as we went along.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you have any thoughts or feelings about that, or if this, do you have a preferred version?
Um, I haven't really put too much thought in it to be honest, because most of my, I guess most of my, not knowledge, but what I've always perceived as her origin, the important thing to me was always just she was a psychiatrist that went into Arkham and um, Joker twists her around and basically, makes her what she is. The tweaks were done prior to that. What kind of person was Harley prior to entering Arkham for the first time? And it's such a even in this book, it's a very small portion of what the story is being told. Um, and I look at something like Harleen as what it is. It's an Elseworld story. Um, I think as long as you get that core right from this story, I think you could go numerous amount of different ways, and I'd still be okay with it. As far as preference, though, um, I can see where you're coming from as if she was already a glory hound and she was already trying to get one up on, these inmates, then it kind of makes it seem like she wasn't the greatest person to begin with. It might detract a little bit from what the Joker accomplished, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. I could see it either way, and I'm fine with it.
Sure. And I think for me, it is that. It's that going from the depiction here, she she was not really a great person to begin with.
Mhm.
Especially the way that she got through school and the way that and that's it. I admit that's extremely judgmental on my part.
They're
So there's
doing it for that
probably,
reason. They don't put that
yeah,
panel in there if they're not hinting at that. It
they
being
want you to judge
being
her. Yeah.
yes, they're that one panel is meant for you to completely assume that that is one minor thing of many that she has
Mhm.
done. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
meant to be a generalization.
which looking at it that way, it's almost like Harley and Joker are the perfect pair
Mhm.
because that's what I mean. Joker is the master manipulator. So it's
Or
like
I'll even
two,
say she just needed a little push. And
yeah, there
that's
you go.
yeah.
There you go. So you've got these two manipulators who kind of fit together, and one's just a little bit stronger personality than the other.
Yeah.
Um, One of the things that I really love about this story is I love it when people make, Joker the unreliable narrator.
Mhm.
And when it kind of goes back to kind of like the Dark Knight, like you don't know what his origin story is. He's got a multiple choice. And I love that he uses that to gain sympathy from people because
Mhm.
Joker's not really a sympathetic person or a sympathetic figure, but he uses psychology to get into people's heads and make them feel sorry for him, specifically people in positions of authority over him, like
Mhm.
doctors at Arkham. And he does that with Harley because he tells her a sob story about his father being an abusive person and just always looking for his adoration and never worked out. And he uses the circus when he was 7 years old as an example. And then later in the book, Batman throws that back at Harley because that's the story he's used to fool Harley and to trick Harley into thinking he's something he's not.
Mhm.
And he says, which story was it? He mentions what was an ice
The ice
show or
show.
something.
Yeah, the ice
Yeah.
show. Yeah.
Yeah, when he was 7 years old, and
Mhm.
Harley, it clicks in. Harley's like, "Well, no, he told me the circus."
Yeah.
So but Batman's planting that seed that no, Joker's told so many people so many stories to make them feel sorry for him. Which is pure Joker to me.
Mhm.
I love it. And I love that that's momentarily what Batman convinces Harley that you're not in a good situation. And I think it opens her eyes, but she's hopeless. So, I what do you think though? Is the multiple choice thing, is it overdone, or when used correctly, do you like this? Do you like it?
Well, I think even in this case, to me, it's not like he's giving a multiple choice. Um, like he's not playing on his own psychosis here on saying like he doesn't even know his own origin. He's using it to manipulate others. So I think
Right.
it's a little bit different than say the Dark Knight, where he might just be kind of like, is he doing it for the same reasons, or is he doing it just because he can't remember what's what? Or doesn't care what's what. He has all these things that he pulls from. I think that's why I like it, is because you don't know which way he's playing it. And I think in this case, this is very early on. I mean, this is 1993. Hard to say it's overplayed when we're looking at a book from 93. Now, I actually think I want more of this going
Mm.
forward because I feel like we've gotten away from the multiple choice more with the Joker in more recent years. Um,
That's a good point because I think everybody kind of whether you say this or not, I think most people kind of think in their heads Killing Joke
yeah,
is his origin, which even in
which can
that,
also be interpreted as, you
yeah.
know, a false narrative or false narrator.
Mhm.
Um,
Because in that
it's
he says, if I'm going to have a past, I prefer it to be multiple choice.
Yeah, that's kind of where it started, even though it kind
Hmm.
of gives a definitive origin. Also, it plays with you, and I think that's always been my preferred thing on the Joker is whatever you want it to be, it can be, or if you have no idea, it's more important to, his origin's not important.
Right.
Um, we do get, a little playback to him being dropped in the vat of acid in the book. I don't think that
Hmm.
was in the episode.
It was briefly.
Oh, okay. Excuse me. But yeah, I always prefer the multiple choice thing. I do. I don't like definitive origin. And the animated series always went with Jack Napier. Um, I mean, we've
Yeah.
always had the Jack Napier nods. We have the little origin from Mask of the Phantasm. They've actually gone more definitive in the animated series than maybe some other interpretations. But yeah, I prefer the different multiple choice stuff, and I do think it's done well in most of the things I've read. Uh, I mean, I know you love the Murphyverse. If you look at the way he's portrayed in that at face value and take away the fact that it's a really entertaining story that you like more than I do, but I do enjoy the story. If you look at that interpretation of Joker at face value and pretend like if that was canon, I don't think I would like it at all. Like if you just presented that to me in front of me, I don't think I would enjoy it at all. I think it just works because of the story.
Well, and the Elseworlds nature of it as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I completely agree with that. I mean, if that was definitive Joker, no way. But for the side story, that not in canon. But interesting point you brought up because I didn't even think when I asked you that question, what do you think of is it overdone or not? I mean, at this point, when this comic came out, they were only 5 years removed from the Killing Joke coming out.
Mhm.
So that I mean, they were pretty close to it at that
Yeah.
time. So it was pretty fresh. Um, you had brought up the art earlier,
Mhm.
and I think because this is one of the rare scenarios I think with Batman the Animated Series, and there's not many other straight adaptations from the Batman Adventures. There's several, but not a ton. This is one where I actually prefer the comic
Mhm.
over the TV episode. And it is because of the art. Because there's so many stories in the new Batman Adventures that I would love to see reanimated
Mhm.
in the original Batman the Animated
Oh
Series
yeah.
style. And having that in the Batman Adventures comic that I can read this great story from that we have this, very iconic episode of, but I can see it in that original art. And I think that's what gives it the edge and makes me prefer the comic. Um, but if you had to choose Joker poisonous flower to your head, Joe, if you had to choose between the comic or the episode, which would you take?
I would say the
And oh wait,
comic
and before you answer that, I'm sorry to
art
interrupt.
aside.
Before you answer that,
Hmm.
no, art is part of it.
Okay.
You got to think, okay, so you don't in the episode you've got Conroy and you've got Mark Hamill. So you've
Yeah.
got those voices. So when you're reading, of course you can hear it in your head, but it's not quite the same.
Yeah.
So you got to weigh those things when you're thinking whether you prefer the comic or the episode. So
Well,
having said all that, what do you think?
well, I think preference wise, I think the book because it just has a little bit more to it than the episode. But if you told me right now, poisonous flower to your head, you can only have one and the other one goes away forever, I'm taking the episode
Mm.
because I get more enjoyment out of watching the episode than I would read the comic, if that makes sense. Like I think I prefer the story in the comic and the animation in the comic, but don't take away that episode because I think the episode is such a perfect translation. Um, I it's much easier for me to just put on that episode, and that episode has been such a part of our lives for so long with the voices. Don't take away those voices from me. Don't take away those that kind of performance from me because that's what I prefer. But if like now, if I remember correctly, here's my one nitpick with the book, and I don't remember how it ends in the show, which is so bad. But I like the final line in the episode better. I don't like the final line in the comic. I think it's different, and I can't remember what it is in the episode, which is kind of defeating my purpose here.
The
But
final you talking about with Harley and the
yes,
cell?
doesn't she say something like wonderful? Like he's wonderful?
She says angel.
Angel. Okay. I don't like the final line in the book, which is it felt like a kiss.
Hmm.
I'm so used to and again, I couldn't even remember what the episode was, which is stupid because I'm contradicting myself that I liked it better. But I remember reading the book and it says it felt like a kiss as the final line. And I'm like, that doesn't sound right. Like whatever it was in the episode, I liked better. And it's probably just because I've seen the episode so many times, I noticed right away that it ended differently.
And that's what I was gonna say. I think you've definitely seen the episode more than you've read the comic.
Hmm.
Same for me. So I think it's just so ingrained in your head that that
Yes.
last line is different.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I did. So I read the book yesterday. I watched the episode this morning before we recorded.
Hmm.
I'll be honest, I didn't even pick up on it. But
Yeah,
I
I
guess,
I fell asleep watching the episode last night. So I didn't catch the ending. But I read the book this morning and I knew, okay, something that's different. I know that's different. And I wasn't crazy about it because I remember oh God, Tara Strong, right?
mhm.
I remember her voice and I remember hearing it. And I'm like, okay, she definitely does not say felt like a kiss. Like that sounds so weird to me. And I couldn't hear her voice saying the line. That's how I knew it was wrong.
Another great point bringing up Tara Strong because we always talk about Hamill and we talk about Kevin Conroy, but
Hmm.
Tara Strong in this episode specifically, she does such a great job, not only with her regular Harley voice, which is purposefully grating,
Hmm.
um, but then she did a wonderful job switching to the more professional
Yeah.
Harleen Quinzel.
Hmm.
And even at the end in that scene that you were just talking about, when she's saying no more, I'm done with the Joker. And then she sees the flower on the nightstand and it instantly clicks back to the Harley
Yes.
Quinn voice when she says angel.
Hmm.
I think Tara Strong does and I know we're talking about, we've mixed the comic and the show so much here, but I thought this was one of Tara Strong's strongest performances.
Yeah. I mean, this is it's her episode. I mean, this
Yeah.
is, and that's what's so funny too about it being a Batman New Adventures episode. Robin is not included. Batgirl's not included. It is specifically done that way because one, the book was done with that, but you could totally just insert this into Batman the animated series and it wouldn't make a difference.
Mm.
There's no real reference to the timeline other than Joker and Batman have been at this for a while. But even in the Batman the animated series, they've been at it for a while.
Yeah.
So that the timeline doesn't make much of a difference here. I liked that they didn't like just shoehorn in Tim Drake's Robin into this episode because it was a Batman New Adventures episode.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. And I think the biggest point that I love about this story, especially this comic, there's a lot of times, and I've said this on this show before, that I miss Harley and Joker.
Yeah,
I miss
we
that
don't get
so
that at
much.
all anymore. It's so you're right. It's frustrating. I get that Harley had to grow, and comic characters are always meant to grow. But it's like it's kind of like how I miss Dick Grayson Robin in the comics because we never get that anymore, and I never had that. As stupid as that
Hmm.
is, like I
Yeah,
mean, we
same.
never we never had Dick Grayson as Robin in the comics. Imagine if we grew like kids today have not had the Harley Quinn Joker relationship because that died in the comics in 2011 with the New 52.
Hmm.
So it's going on, geez, 12 years, 13 years now.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. Again, I have no problem with Harley and Poison Ivy. I like Harley and Ivy,
Hmm.
but there's I just miss those Joker and Harley stories. I think that's part of why I do love the Murphyverse so much because
It's
that's
the core of
not
that story. Yeah.
that's not a relationship that Murphy's gonna break up. I mean, even post Joker's death, spoilers, um, that's that's Harley's guy. So as much of a whacked out bad relationship as it is at times, through the comics and through the TV shows and everything else, I mean, these are fictional characters. I don't feel so bad about wanting Harley to be in that relationship. I just
Yeah.
don't. I do like that they gave her character growth and they evolved her, but I'd love to circle back to more of Joker and Harley, which
Yeah.
is again, I can read this at any time and love it. So that's a good thing. But getting that, I guess, injected into my fandom every once in a while of going back and seeing these classic stories like this, that's the biggest thing I like.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, just to touch on that a little bit, and this is kind of going on a little bit of a tangent, which I don't want to start too much, but with comics, how you have that huge progression, where over the last, how many years we have Dick Grayson becoming Nightwing, we have Harley, disbanding from the Joker. I think I would have loved, like, they're always trying to reboot every once in a while. I don't even need a full reboot or a soft reboot that like they always do, but they still keep everything kind of status quo. I would love something akin to how Marvel did the Ultimate Universe, where keep the standard universe going and progressing. Can we kind of start like you know, from day one and have modern storytelling based on, when Batman first adopts Dick Grayson, when Harley first meets the Joker. Like, I would love DC to do something like that. And don't try to do anything drastically different like the Ultimate Universe did with Marvel. You don't have to go crazy different, but just modern versions of it and have like a congruent story going with that. I think that'd be really interesting. But I
so
think
you
with
mean
something like that, you have to go different because what's the point of doing it if you didn't?
right?
But that's the
So
hard
you
part.
so you mean like an ongoing story, whereas I mean we have Black Label where we get
Yeah, I
one-offs and
want
things like that.
like again, like Marvel Unlimited, not Marvel Unlimited, the Ultimate Universe. Like they had Ultimate Spider-Man, and Ultimate Captain. Like I know that I think it was I think the Captain America one is the one that people didn't like. Like they did it for everything though. Every
Sure.
main ongoing title got an ultimate title and they basically started from scratch and it was for new readers to kind of jump on to a new story, but they still had the continuing story going. I would love something like that with DC, but again, why would you do that and keep it kind of status quo? You have to tell different stories. You have to tweak things a little bit. And I think that's what they tried to do with the new 52 and people didn't like it. So, but again, they kind of
For the
like
most part. I mean, there's some parts people liked, but
and they kind of went, they did that whole 5 year thing. So it wasn't really going back to day one with some characters. They went back to day one with Superman, but not with Batman. And then I don't know, they kind of jumped around a little bit. They never know, they never want to go full bore into something. They kind of like, you know, for lack of a better term, kind of half ass it. Where I would love, like they did Earth One, which was kind of that,
mhm.
but they went very different. Where I would love like what's the story we got? With Dick Grayson as Robin. Robin and Batman by
Robin and Batman's fantastic.
Tony what's how do you say his last name?
Oh
Um
gosh.
it's like
Yeah.
Nguyen or right? Am I at least spelling it right? It's like Njuyen or something. Is that the one I'm thinking of? Crap.
Robin and Batman is Jeff Lemire.
Oh, okay, then I just got the wrong name. I just got the
Yeah.
wrong artist completely. And you're like, how can you not say his name? Um
And Dustin Nguyen
okay.
did the art. Yeah, so what I'm hearing is it kind of I
It's a
gotcha.
nostalgia grab. It's a nostalgia grab for no reason other than I could clearly go back and just read those books if I want to, but I want, a modern version of them, unfortunately,
Yeah,
but
sure.
you
Well, I
can't
mean, and
have your cake and eat it too.
to your point, I mean, Ultimate Spider-Man is one of my absolute
Hmm.
favorite runs of Spider-Man
Yes.
ever. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind that. I think had they done New 52 kind of as a side thing from
Hmm.
continuity, it might have
Yeah.
been better received because
Yeah.
characters like Superman were just a little too left of center
Yeah.
for people. Um, but yeah, I mean, to wrap up on Mad Love, I think it's a perfect, especially with my opinion on Valentine's Day. I think it's a
Mm.
perfect story for Valentine's
Yeah.
Day because of people who get really insane about Valentine's Day. I mean, it could be Mad Love. So, but classic Joker and Harley and Batman story. One that I really enjoy going back to, whether it be the comic or the series episode. But any final thoughts or anything that we left out that you wanted to mention about Mad Love?
No, I don't think so. I think it's a quick read. It's what is it? 60 something pages, I think. Um
Yeah, which fascinates me to try to check out that deluxe edition because it's like 145 pages. So I want to see what's in
oh
there.
wow. Yeah. I mean the trade is packed too. Like I said, there's a couple of other stories in here. It's probably the same material. This is 195 pages. It's
Mm,
probably the same stuff, but I love that it includes the annual of Holiday Nights, whatever. It's called something different, but it includes that.
yeah.
Um I it's such a quick read. It's a really fun story, and I think for us that really know the episode, front to back for the most part, go check out the book and try to refresh yourself on what started that episode. What this is what it stemmed from, and it's cool that they did do this as a book because they didn't see it as an episode back when this came out. I mean, there's a good forward in the trade by Paul Dini, and then Bruce Timm does kind of the it says commentary, but it's more like just a reflection on it at the end of the story. Really good tidbits in the trade about what made them decide to do it as a comic and not do it as an episode just yet, I guess.
Mm.
I guess they just didn't feel like it fit for the show at the time. But yeah, I really enjoy it. It's our first um I'm trying to remember, is this the first appearance of Harley in the comic or no? Is this Batman
No,
Adventures number
that
12?
no,
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 right?
no.
Okay.
This was a
This
one
was this
shot.
was a prestige or whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah,
Um,
I love it and I think it's good to read it once in a while just to try to differentiate from the episode.
yeah. And last thing I did want to mention that I almost forgot. There are huge nods because of course there are because Paul Dini wrote them. There are huge nods to this in Batman Arkham Asylum
Hmm.
as well as Arkham Origins.
Yeah.
So just wanted to point that out because of course there are that those games are like extensions of the animated series.
Yeah.
So naturally it fits there. And of course it's been released in trade hardcover. It's in the Batman Adventures omnibus, which and it's one of the highlights of that book. So if you haven't read it or you haven't read it in a while, go check it out, guys. It's wonderful. But that's where we'll put a pin in it for Mad Love. Before we do leave you guys, though, we do have an email, so I wanted to get to that really quickly, Joe. And this is from Stuart from Guernsey. And Stuart says, "Hey guys, I finally finished my DCEU rewatch, which took me just over 2 weeks. Now I've watched them all back to back. I feel like I have my true ranking. I must say, I do feel guilty for the movies at the bottom of my list, as I don't actually dislike any of them, but I have to go by my overall enjoyment. There are things I really love about them and things I don't, hence why they're there. Anyway, this is my ranking starting with number one. So from top to bottom, Stuart has Batman v Superman, Zack Snyder's Justice League, The Flash, Man of Steel, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Peacemaker, Suicide Squad, Shazam, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, Wonder Woman 84, Blue Beetle, Shazam Fury of the Gods, Birds of Prey, Black Adam, and The Suicide Squad. I hope you're both doing well and don't criticize my decisions. Haha, Stuart. Well, thank you so much, Stuart. And thank you for the update because you told us a couple of episodes back that you were going to do that rewatch. And I asked you to send in your ranking. So you followed up here. So I really appreciate that. And Joe, what do you think of Stuart's final ranking of the DCEU here?
Well, his well, thank you, Stuart, for sending it in. His top two are the same as mine, so I definitely love that. I love that he has the Flash so high,
I do too.
because so many people have kind of let that they've let all the nonsense surrounding that movie kind of deter our enjoyment of the movie itself. And I still
Sure.
think it's a fun movie. I don't have it quite as high, but I do have it pretty high on my list. Um, the bottom of his list is a little interesting to me, the bottom few, but I think his preface, saying that he doesn't dislike any of them, I think is important because I'm the same way. Even the ones that are on the bottom of my list, I don't really dislike any of them. So I think it's
Sure.
fun to see the differing opinions on certain films, like having The Suicide Squad so low at the very bottom, and having Wonder Woman 1984 kind of higher up than most people.
I
Um,
respect that.
yeah, having it above Blue Beetle, and I mean, most people don't care for Shazam: Fury of the Gods. I know I'm in the minority of liking that one pretty a lot
I'm with
actually.
you.
Um, but Birds of Prey and Black Adam being down towards the bottom, I can see to an extent. But again, we're lucky enough where we all pretty much like most of these movies. So I like the variety of his list, and I like that, the honesty too. Like, I mean, there's one glaring omission from the list, which basically puts it at the bottom, I'm assuming, is the JL 2017.
I was
But
gonna say,
I
I think it's fascinating that he just completely skipped that one, which is fine. It's
yeah,
cool.
I figure it's
Uh
it's it's the same as Zack Snyder's. It's got to be probably two on the list.
oh shit.
But
Okay.
but no, I will say I love that Suicide Squad is so high because some of us have kind of been down on that lately. I love that he still has such an affinity for it and putting it so high on his list.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest standout to me that Suicide Squad is pretty high, all things considered, and the
Hmm.
Suicide Squad is dead last. That's
Yeah.
fascinating to me. But again, that's the variety of this this series of films offered so many different things for so many different people that you have a lot of variety, and I like to see that. So thank you so much, Stuart. We really appreciate you continuing to support the show and writing in and sharing your list there.
Well,
But
I
Joe,
want to say
oh,
I want to give you credit because you said this in our chat a couple weeks ago. Um, you're so right that everyone looked at this universe as inconsistent, where
mhm.
you made the good point of saying, no, it's almost like this universe had something for everybody. It had such variety in it. That's why all of our lists are so different. It's because all of these films tried to do something different. And I think that was the positive that so many of us level-headed people took away from this universe, where other people said, "Oh, I didn't care for that movie. This universe sucks."
Hmm.
Um, or this movie has to save the universe because, I didn't like the last one. Well, no, that one just wasn't for you, and other people loved it. Where I think the consistent mediocrity is just as bad as a good movie than a bad movie. Or, I don't want consistent mediocrity. I want variety. So I think that's the
Yep.
plus that we got from this universe. And I'll give you credit for bringing that to our attention the other day.
Well, thank you. And I completely agree with you. But yeah, I think that's a good place to wrap it up for the day, Joe. Thank you so much for joining once again. This was a fun one, and I love that we ended with a really fun email from Stuart there. But thank you for joining, and if you don't mind, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you on social media?
You guys can find me on X, Instagram, and Letterboxd as J411, and you can find me on Facebook as Joe Fornarato, Fornarotto. And thank you again, and thank you, Stuart, for the email. It's always fun when we get to check in with you guys.
Absolutely. As for myself, you can find my personal accounts on Instagram, X, and Letterboxd. That's me Carter 89. The show can be found on Facebook, Instagram, X, and Threads at TFR Batpod. Once again, if you want to support the show, the best and easiest way to do that is to leave us a rating and review on whatever podcast platform you listen to us on. If you leave a written review on Apple Podcasts, we will read those on the show. If you're looking for another way to support this show, and we don't ask that you spend any money on this show, but we greatly appreciate it if you do, you can go to redbubble.com and search Shop TFR, all one word, and find our logos on some very cool merch. And our logo was created by Justin Kowalski. Our theme music was composed by Gaurav Venkateswar, and his music can be found on gvtunes.com. Make sure to follow the link in the description of this podcast and visit Organic Priced Books and use our promo codes there. Save yourself a little bit of money and support us as you do so. But that's going to do it for this episode of TFR. For all of you who celebrate, I'm sorry, but happy Valentine's Day. I hope you have a very good Valentine's Day, and we'll see you next time. But keep that bat signal lit and pointed skyward.
Batman was created by Bill Finger and Bob Kane and is the sole property of Warner Bros. Discovery. The Fire Rises, a Batman podcast, is in no way associated with Warner Bros. Discovery, DC Comics, or DC Studios. The thoughts and opinions of the participants of this show are their own and do not represent the companies that they work for. Thank you for listening. We'll see you on the next episode.
Boring, lame, not funny. Been done. To Riddler. What? Harley? Oh, where the heck have you been? Yeah. Batman, eh? Well, you don't say. You have who tied up where?
Well, nuts to you, Mr. Smarty Bat. When I told Mr. J what I was doing, he was so thrilled he could hardly speak.
Harley!
Hi, Puddin'! You're just in time to see the...
Excuse me, I'll be just a minute.
But Puddin', I don't understand. Don't you want to finally get rid of Batman?
Only if I do it, idiot!
But it's still your plan, see? Everything just like you said. Except I hung the guy upside down so he'd see their little frowns as little smiles. Now it all works.
Except you had to explain it to me. If you have to explain a joke, there is no joke.
Now I'll calm down, Puddin'.
You've forgotten what I told you a long time ago. One of the painful truths of comedy. You always take shots from folks who just don't get the joke. And don't call me Puddin'.
My fault. I didn't get the